Molly, there's a podium on the other side. You want it? Oh, I can pull that over. I forgot it. Should start soon.
How are you? All right. Okay, so you guys know me. Thank you for coming. I am excited to see you here. I'm so happy that you my name is Molly. I am a Oh, I need the speaker.
Oh, shoot. Okay, hold on. You know, let me give you the keyboard. Let me make sure that works. Yes. If that's okay.
Yeah.
To close down there. I left it up on the second floor otherwise.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Molly. I am an agent at Keller and the team lead. We have a team of 6 agents or so, and then Keller
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah.
20 agents.
Just the yeah.
Well, we're 2 of the founding members of that office. So really excited about what's going on in the real estate market as well as Oakland, south side of Chicago. Been in the business for 7 years or so. Prior to that, I was in back in customer service and sales. Went to Brand University and I grew up around here. I left for a while, came back, and so if anytime you guys have any questions on anything that we're talking about, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, shout out. It's pretty informal, and I'd rather your question be answered right away if there's something that's top of mind instead of waiting to the end of it. So don't hesitate at all. All right, so we're going to go through the 5 steps of the home buying process. Each step is going to be a little bit more detailed. We'll run through what they are and then go into each one thoroughly. So the first thing that you're going to do is first gauge if you are prepared to purchase a home. Are you in a good place financially? Do you qualify for a mortgage? And going through just kind of understanding where you are on the road to your pre-approval. So step 1, you're going to gather your documents. Obtaining pre-approval, we'll talk about where you can get that, where you can get that from. To make sure that you have money and preparing for your down payment and any additional closing costs. The market that we're in right now is, as you know, well, if you know, it's total seller's market. So you're not getting closing costs paid for by the seller most of the time. You want to make sure that you are in the best position possible to make the strongest offer that you can so that you're also accepted if your home purchasing endeavors are successful. Step 2, once you're pre-approved or once your finances are in order, try to talk loud.
That's up to you. Yeah, if you're okay with that. Sure.
Okay. Step 2 is starting the home search process. So once you are pre-approved and you know where you are financially, where do you want to be? Where are you going to look? What type of home are you going to be searching for? Is it going to be a condo? Is it going to be a single family home? What are your needs and your wants? What are the negotiables? That sort of thing. So you're going to start just doing some research to gauge like the areas that you want to be in and what fits within the budget that you believe you're going to be. Once you find the house, once you start looking with your agents and you're going to go under contract. To go under contract, you're going to be writing an offer on the property. You're probably in this market going to be competing with other buyers. So you're writing your offer, you're negotiating your terms. Once your offer is accepted, then there's a whole slew of other things that actually happen. And deadlines to meet, and documents that are going to be requested, and different steps of process. So once you're under contract, you've got your inspections, you have appraisals, you're going to negotiate any items that might come up with the seller. And then your lender is going to be asking for documents. Your insurance agent is very important as well in terms of ordering your homeowner's insurance. And then you're going to work your way towards closing. So for closing, this is where you and your attorney, you guys been under contract? No, you haven't been under contract. Okay. Have you already been looking for a home? No, okay. All right, so you're going to have an attorney. This is something that wasn't mentioned on one of the previous slides, but having an attorney is really important, and whoever your real estate agent is will guide you towards an attorney who, one, is really good at their job, great at communicating, and will keep you on the right track to make sure that you're staying in within your deadline. Your title company is going to conduct a title search. The attorney orders a survey. You've got closing statements. Like they work, your attorney works hand in hand with the title company and your lender to get you to the closing table. Once you're at the closing table, it's a fun couple of hours and you're done. All right, so this was Brian's section. So I was planning on having a lender here, just so you know, I mentioned it to you guys, there was going to be a lender here talking about finances, but he has COVID, unfortunately. So if you have questions about this, I'll do my best to get you answers, but if not, I'll put you in touch with a lender or your lender to get answers. All right, so the first step is the home buying process to get your pre-approval letter from your lender. So this is where, even if you have not compiled any documents at this point, you're going to call a lender. They're going to ask for basic information from you. What your pay is. Are you 1099 or are you W-2? They're going to ask you possibly for your tax returns if you're a 1099 employee. They're going to run your credit. They're going to gauge how much money you have in the bank and what you qualify for. They take a look at your debt to income ratios, and there's lots of different factors when it comes to your pre-approval. So just be prepared to open the books because it's best to do as much thorough work up front and make sure that you're in a good spot to find out at the end of the road after you've already put in so much time and money that you maybe have an issue with approval. So first step is to get your pre-approval letter, which you'll get that once you give the lender all the requested documentation. And they make sure that they're setting you up with a product that makes sense. The pre-approval letter is only valid. You guys probably want to get a new one.
The 22nd.
That's it?
Yeah,
He reruns your credit every time.
He said he wasn't going to.
There was a
miscommunication and he did. We got hit again.
Okay, well,
Careful document.
yeah. So if you're looking for a house over a very long period of time, your pre-approval letter will need to be updated by the time you're ready to make an offer. And it's really important that if your finances stay the same, your lender may not need to run your credit every 90 days or however long it takes before it expires. I know some lenders don't want to really run it at all until they know the right to pull the trigger. And each time they run it within 90 days, it does ding you a little bit. However, I know that credit bureaus are a little forgiving if you're getting your credit score run or your credit is run by multiple different lenders within a 30-day period because they're just going to shop. So, I will say, I already said you guys, I do think he's the best in business, no doubt. But if you need any lender recommendations, if you're just going down this road, I can refer you to somebody who's very, very good. And they'll make sure that you're on the right track and get you in the price point that you're comfortable with where you're not going to have an issue. All right. So, as I mentioned before, once you have your pre-approval and you know what price point you're qualifying for, you're going to come up with a needs list and a want list. What do you absolutely have to have? What would you like? And then what are things that you can negotiate on? So sometimes the non-negotiables include air conditioning, central air. Like I absolutely have to have central air in the house that doesn't have it. Or for some people, it's a master bath. Some people, it's, I did have one woman, it was a bathtub. She, she would not look at a house where there was only a shower option. There was no tub in the house. She wouldn't have bothered. Sometimes it's a fireplace or an attached garage. So you just have to go take a look at your lifestyle and take a look at, what you want in your purchase, and just make your list so that when you start looking, you don't get caught up in the emotions of beautiful photos, that you're staying true to what you're actually, you're staying true to your big picture. So, well, I guess you guys, what were your hot tips? Large
garage, 2-car garage, 4-wheeler, 3-bedroom.
Not necessarily has to have, it more of a negotiable to not attached garage. Yeah, like, for example, my grandpa's house is an attached garage. Their house is set up with 2 family rooms, one is on, one is attached to the garage. We work on our own stuff. So if somebody's in the garage, impact hammer on something on a saw, you literally hear it in the living room.
Yeah.
So having a detached, you're pulling that noise.
Your lifestyle.
And then if after you're in that house, you might change different things for your second house if you don't stay at the first one forever. But I know when we looked at houses, we actually didn't have anything on our tax, right? It was like 3 bedrooms, that's all we cared about. We just want to have full-time to be covered for homes. There were really nothing on the market. I mean, similar to now, it's not many buyers. We just wanted a house. So, all right, so needs might be things like, square footage or a bedroom on the main level if you don't want stairs, if you can't do stairs. If you want to worry about your commute, your close proximity to work or to family. Your wants are more like, a fence in the backyard or something that's less expensive that you can do on your own. Sometimes wants are a remodeled bathroom. It's not a need. So it's important once you get your pre-approval, you know what category you fall in for shopping, then you determine what can I have, what's negotiable. And it's a lot more difficult as you're working with 4 buyers. If you have a partner, and you want one thing and you want the other. So and what we've experienced recently too is a lot of buyers who are shopping with extended family members too. So mom has to have this, and I want this, and trying to find it becomes a lot more difficult, especially with the couple. So any questions there? No. One thing that's missing from this slide deck too is before you even go down, and you guys did this, but before you even go down the road of getting your pre-approval and searching for homes, I believe you should find a real estate agent. You should find somebody who knows is really, really knowledgeable and has success in the areas that you're looking in. I think it's important to find somebody who's a good personality match for you as well, and somebody with a proven track record. And then that real estate agent can guide you to a lender that they work well with, who does a really good job, has a good reputation. And then once you get under contract, that agent can hopefully also guide you to an attorney that they have success as well. It's really just the dealings that we've had. It's very important to work as a team, and occasionally when you have somebody in the mix who you've not worked with before and they work differently, it can be challenging. So you just want to make sure that there's clear communication. And the real estate agent really is the person who's getting you in the door and writing the contract and guiding you from the beginning. Obviously, the other people are super important, but you're spending more time with your agent. So I think that it's important to find somebody first, and if you interview a couple, cool. But they should kind of get you going down this road. And that's when you start looking at homes. What I would say is what we did here, they set them up on a property search. based on their needs and their wants. And you guys can communicate the rest of it. I feel like I'm presenting to you. I know everyone else in the room, so I'm sorry if I keep staring at you. So what was I saying? Okay, so I gave needs and wants. You guys told me where you wanted to be, what you wanted, and then I will set it up so that they receive properties automatically. If they see something that yes, it checks all their boxes and it's the right location, then they reach back out and say, yeah, we want to go see this one. What's really nice too in our MLS now that wasn't offered before was the private listing. So if you're just looking at Zillow and realtor.com to look at houses, you're missing a lot of properties. Real estate agents have the ability to send you listings that are not on market or they're coming soon on the market. So if you already have an agent that you're working with, ask to make sure that you're getting those private listings sent to you. Because most homes right now, if they're listed on the private network, they're selling before they go public. And so by the time they hit Zillow or by the time they hit realtor.com, they're gone. They're already sold. So it's really important to the market. You guys are getting credit. All right. So your agent will set up showings. They'll try, if you have 5 or 6 houses that you want to see, schedule them in a way that it makes sense to see them all as quickly as possible. And in a fast moving market like this, we try to go out the same day or the very next day to make sure that you can see it before it's gone. Because they won't. All right. So something to remember with your home is that you can always change everything inside of it. You can never change the location. You can sometimes change the layout. That's very expensive. So I always tell buyers, you can always change everything else except the location and the layout. If those 2 things work for you and it's within your budget, why not go for it? Sometimes waiting for the perfect house. I think there is no such thing. If you're waiting for the perfect house at the right price and interest rates keep going up, that same house in 6 months is going to end up costing you a lot more. So, location, I think, is very, very key too. All right, so you think you found the one, you start looking at houses, maybe you look at a bunch, maybe you look at one. Say, everybody's different. You might look at 20 houses. I think there was one client, I'm pretty sure I showed her over 90 houses in the course of 3 months. It was crazy. There was a lot more inventory at the time. But if you find the one, whether it's number 1 or number 50, you want to make an offer. There's a couple components, a couple things that you need to think about in terms of your offer. One is your sales price, which your agent will guide you to in this market. And currently for oak lawns, to use as an example, the percentage of sales price that it's selling for homes are selling for 98.9% of the list price, 98.9% of the list price. So most homes are selling for basically full price. So you want to go in strong with your best offer. On your offer, you're going to have your sales price, your closing date, or your desired closing date. If you're competing against another buyer, or several other buyers, I always will ask you what if your closing date can be flexible, let's see what the seller wants. If the seller, if you can leave that date open, which we just did with a buyer deal that we on Abby and Greg, we left the closing date blank and said seller choice, because those buyers can just do whatever, they just really wanted the house. And if you can, that's one of the terms. Normally, a home will sell or will close anywhere from 30 to 45 days. That's like typical, but if the seller is worried about finding a house to buy, they might want longer. They might want 60 days, and then they might want to rent back for you. It happens, okay? It sounds weird. We'll worry about the details when we get there, but it's happening. Earnest money is something that's also an important note to consider. It's basically your deposit on the property. So once your contract is accepted, you'll be expected to put down 1 to 2% of the sales price as earnest money, and that money is held usually by the seller's real estate brokerage or the seller's attorney. It's held until closing, and then it's credited towards your down payment. So just know that if your offer is accepted within 2 days, you have that, you have to have that $5,000, whatever it is, one who's holding it, so our company takes personal checks, so it's listed by our office. Sometimes they have title companies hold it, if the title company is holding it, it has to be a cashier's check. Some companies take wires, it totally depends. But it's due, so you gotta make sure it's available.
Apple Pay? Apple Pay.
No. I haven't seen Apple Pay, although there is a new program called Trust Funds through the MLS that it can set up a wire for you. All right, so your offer is accepted. Congratulations. It's extremely hard these days to get an offer accepted. That's when there's a whole new timeline. So within the first 5 days, you have attorney review. Well, so within the first 2 to 3 business days, depending on what you negotiated on your contract, you have to have your earnest money in. Within 5 days, 5 business days, you have to have your inspection. It's also the attorney review period. So you would choose an attorney as a buyer, and the seller would choose an attorney. They can't be the same attorney. Those attorneys take the contract and they basically cut it up and they make all kinds of changes and modifications. So they'll change random sentences that you the normal person wouldn't even understand what they are, but they'll make changes to certain time periods, frames. They ask for clarification, which is contingency or a home contingency. There's a lot that goes into it, but don't the attorneys have the deadlines covered. And they'll say they need an extension. It's say you can't book an inspector until the 5th business day because they're really booked right now as well. Then they'll ask for an extension to extend the attorney review period another week or a couple of days. So the deadlines are super important. That's why it's really great to have a lawyer because they will make sure that nothing gets missed. Also, on our team, we have Jamie, who's super and she's got the deadlines down pat. As soon as she receives the contract and uploads it to our system, she's got the deadlines and the dates and the calendar to make sure that we're not missing anything. And different checklists associated with your contract. I think you have a termite inspection that's negotiated, or Jamie, what are some other things? Home warranty is ordered. She makes sure that everything is totally on track. What else?
Well, it depends on also which towns you're in. Evergreen Park has inspections, Oak Lawn has final water reads, transfer stamps.
So the closing requirements, and that's too, a lot of times people working with sellers, they have the closing requirements and buyers have the closing requirements. So it could vary.
But it's always good that we keep track on both sides so that we don't put it on somebody else that falls through the cracks.
It is very okay, so I got that right. So important dates, as I discussed with your attorney. So how 2 business days for the earnest money, 5 days for the inspection. Sometimes if you're purchasing a property in the city, there's second installment of earnest money that's due after attorney review. So there's, depending on where you are buying or selling, things change a little bit. When you have your inspection, it's important to know that after your inspection, you can only ask for, you can ask for whatever, but in the contract, they need to be health and safety related concerns. So a lot of times in this market, almost every listing that we've had in this past year, buyers are coming in and they're just saying they'll buy it. And the offer, actually, Abby and Greg, I was told, only got that house because they put their offer as is, and the other offers did not. So you don't have to purchase it as is unless the seller states in the listing that it is. But if you're competing, it's a competitive advantage, and you still are allowed to have an inspection. If you have your inspection and there's too many issues, and the seller's not going to fix anything, then that's another story. But if once you have your inspection and you go through the items, anything that's health or safety related, that's a deal breaker to you, I would recommend asking for a repair or a credit. And then at that point, talk with your agent, talk with your lawyer about what's appropriate to ask for. But there's different loans, depending on your type of loan, you're conventional, you're allowed 3% of the sales price back as opposed to cost credit. But that's it, it's capped. And if you are getting FHA loan, it's, I believe, 6% you can get back. But then that's also subject to, it can't be greater than, I was right here, because the number can't be greater than your down payment. Like, I don't know, I'll get you the specifics, but you're not. All right, so. What else? So really, once you're under contract, you get to the inspection, your lender will require you to order the appraisal. A lot of times they wait until after we're on attorney review because they want to make sure that you don't incur any costs. And so you know for sure that you're going through with the purchase. And then after the appraisal, many times once your file goes into underwriting, they come back and they ask you for more documentation. They'll ask for letters of explanation on deposits or withdrawals, or there's a whole slew of things that they can ask for. And if there's any issue with the value, if the appraisal comes in a little bit lower than next, there's other things that may come up. But I always tell people, like, don't be surprised until you're clear to close, until the lender says your loan is approved and you're clear to close. They can always come back and ask for more. So don't try not to get frustrated, and just take one day at a time, because there's always surprises. A good loan officer will make sure that you're fully prepared from the beginning, and they have a good idea of what your financial picture is to prepare you for that. But everyone can not is surprised. So, there we go. This is like out of order. Like the inspection, you can have any kind of inspection that you want on the property within the first 5 business days, or until after your attorney, if your attorney extends it past the first 5 business days, you can have whatever inspection you want. Definitely, I would always recommend an inspection. In this market, we've seen buyers leaving inspections. I don't think that's a good idea. Personally, it's a terrible idea, because I think that it's really important for you to know what you're getting into. Even if you're buying it as is, you need to know what you buy. And especially if you've never owned a home before, like, there's just too many things that could go wrong. But you can have a radon test, a regular inspection, a mold test, termite inspection is a big one. House, I mean, we see houses that have one termite, surprising, but if they're around, we've had houses in the city with termites. And then I found out that in that home, specifically when I think that was near railroad tracks, that termites are very common near railroad tracks. But you can have, there's all kinds of inspections. You have your regular, just general inspection, and then that inspector says, there might be some structural damage here, or there might be some issues with this or that. I highly recommend a structural inspection. Then you can request one of those as well. But as I think I said earlier, when there are things that are concerns, you talk with your agent about them, talk to the lawyer about them, and come up with some reasonable requests that are health and safety related to the seller in terms of repairs and credit. All right. So your appraisal is something that your lender is going to order. The cost varies. I believe it's anywhere between $350 and $450. Some lenders will charge you up front, or they don't charge. They are not the ones charging you. The appraisal management company is the one that charges you. And some lenders will pay for it in advance, and then they just get reimbursed at closing. And some require you. It just depends. But the appraisal is really important because it's just there to make sure that there's something to back up the value of what you offer. The value of a home is what someone is willing to pay for it, right? But the bank wants to make sure that what you're willing to pay for it is actually worth it and verifiable. So they send out third-party appraiser. Different lenders have different requirements. They typically need to see at least 3 closed sales within that zip code or within 1 mile around the property that support the price that you're paying. Most of the time, no issue. Sometimes we have an issue with value, especially when it gets to a multiple offer situation and you start to see buyers offering $20,000 to $30,000 over the asking price. Then it gets it's a little hairy because, I mean, if you've ever seen this, right? We had one appraisal issue, no, we've had more than that this year. One for sure. That's big. It's so far off. Sometimes it appraises for more than you're paying, and have instant equity, which is really nice. The goal of the appraisal is to verify the value of the property to the lender and to protect you from overpaying. So what happens, because the contract is contingent on financing, if you're getting a mortgage, you're not paying, if you're paying cash, you can have an appraisal or you cannot. It's up to you, really, as the buyer. But if you're getting a loan, the only time that you make an appraisal waiver is for putting down over 30%. So if you don't, and even if you're putting down more than 30%, it's still a good idea to have an appraisal from the buyer's perspective. But because the contract is contingent on financing and part of the financing is the appraisal, if the appraisal comes in low, you have to renegotiate with the seller. The seller may still drop the price. They still may say no. Like I had, we had one recently where there was a $30,000 difference between, like our client went $50,000 over, and then the appraisal came in 20 or 30,000 less. 20? That doesn't matter. But it came in lower than what they bid. And in that case, the seller was like, well, I'm not going to go less than this price because I had other offers that were this price. So you can either pay the difference, which say was like 540, or you can pay the difference, or you can't go down and call buyer number 2 or buyer number 3 and see if they're switched with this price. Just because one appraiser didn't appraise it at this high price doesn't mean that another one won't. So it's kind of
It's like 215, right over 200, and his real estate agent was like, "Want it? What you got? Let's throw that at it and see if we can get it." And immediately appraised what he was paying.
Yeah. Most of the time, from my experience, most of the time, appraisals come in right at the purchase price. Because, and I think, I'm not an appraiser, but I think that when the appraiser sees the price on the contract, they'll work, they'll make adjustments until they get to that price. And if they can prove that price, once they get there, it's done. Only a handful of times I've seen it be over, and a lot of times they don't even know what the price is. Like all we ever hear is good or not. Sometimes the lender will tell us what it was, but it's not typically something that we're involved in. Like, just so you know, the realtors are not involved in the financial aspect of buying a house at all. Like, I have no idea what anyone's income is. I have no idea what anyone's credit is. That's income ratio. Like, that's not something that we're ever told. We're told, like, yes, they're a good buyer. Here's a pre-approval. The rest of it is your own private confidential information. Generally stays in the appraisal. It's the property of the buyer as the buyer paid for it. So the only way I'm going to know about it is if the buyer says, "Oh, Molly, my house appraised for 10 grand more than we're paying for it," and they're excited, then sweet, that's awesome too. Most of the times I hear about appraisal, it's because it either came in low or it price. But I think I see so many that hit the price, so they just got adjusted. Once they get where they need it to be, and then they split it, and that's fine. Because it keeps you guys in the contract, and it still is a win-win for the buyer and seller. Buyers getting the house they want, the price they offered. The seller is selling their house, the price they agreed to. So it works for both parties. But on the occasion, if it does come in low, you have to renegotiate. Sometimes it works, sometimes the seller won't budge. Sometimes the buyer can't afford to pay the difference. So then you're back to square one, unfortunately. Okay, this is very important. It's very important not to make any major job changes or purchases. Don't open new credit cards, don't buy furniture, don't get a new car while you're under contract on a property. Anything that might possibly change in that income ratio or your credit score. And that could totally jeopardize the whole deal. That could completely change your approval. It could make your payments higher to then that it prices you out. I mean, we've seen a lot, unfortunately, but it's very important that your lender should always warn you not to give them these things while you're in the contract or while you're shopping until you close on your property. Questions on that? Yeah. Oh, yes.
So if you are, say you're applying for different positions at the same time, if you are offered another job and you receive a contract for a higher pay, what do you do with that?
I would ask your lender. I would double check with your lender. I mean, my opinion is if that's a position that's life changing and it's going to better, you know, I would say if you're not under contract on the house yet, then take it, but check with your lender if you're under contract on something. Because I have seen where offer letters are, they just have to submit it to underwriting. And as long as it's the previous position, you're still employed for 2 years, and you have a good solid job history, they may take the offer letter into consideration and say, okay, you're going to be switching positions. But if you're ever unemployed during the process, like you stop one job and then you haven't started the other one, and there's a gap in your pay, that's when there's problems. And then, you know, the whole thing with COVID, and there's another couple that we're working with that both of their jobs were impacted and they were furloughed. They had some issues with furlough and making sure that they can get a reapproval. So with those questions, I really wish the lender was here to answer them. But I think as long as you have a consistent job history before, and then you can show your offer letter, that might work, but don't hold me on that. All right, so when you hear the word clear to close, this is really great news. It means your loan is approved and the attorneys will schedule your closing. This means that all your stuff has been underwritten, they check, they still might check your job verification of all your employer, and then they'll do one last credit check like the day before closing. But clear to close means that you've met all your conditions, that the underwriter has reviewed everything in your file, and the title is in from the seller side, and now all they need to do is schedule the closing, coordinate the documents, and tell you when to be there and where. And then from once you have a clear to close and your closing is scheduled, then your agent will schedule your final walkthrough. Please don't ever miss your final walkthrough. It's very, very important. We've seen so many times during final walkthroughs where we see things like water in the basement. Actually, one house we walked in, there was the morning of the closing, we went and there was 3 feet of water in the basement in a vacant house because the seller had the utility shut off on the wrong day, and then it rained and some house wasn't working, and the whole basement was flooded. And if they didn't do the final walkthrough, that would be after closing the buyer's responsibility. Seller could just walk away. So we've seen things at the very last minute come up where the seller either has to make a repair or give a credit, or they set money aside in escrow to cover the repairs so the closing can still happen. It's just, don't ever skip your final walkthrough. Definitely always schedule it no matter what. Even if you only have 10 minutes to do so. If you negotiated any repairs with the seller, that's when you actually want to go in and also make sure that those repairs are done and that they were done well. Sometimes if you have repairs requested, you'll have, you know, during the process, they'll forward you the receipts and the invoices to say like, hey, just so you know, I have this done, here's the evidence, but you still want to make sure it's done right. And, you know, depending on what, going back to inspection, depending on what you're requesting, sometimes you want to make sure that it's done right anyway, and you want to hire your own people, so maybe it's better to ask for credit and then hire your own professional to have to. I mean, every situation is different, but I would personally rather my own people do it instead of a stranger whose phone number is not on the receipt, and then something goes wrong. Right, so if I have a walkthrough, we're going to confirm confirm that the seller made repairs. Closing date will be scheduled, the attorney, the title company, they'll tell you where to be, when to be there. And then once you're there, you're really signing documents for a really long time. And then you get the keys and you're done. Any questions? No, you're a realtor already?
I'm working with a couple of them.
Okay, good. So I was gonna say, I mean, I know you're ready for this, but.
Oh, did you want to look at those special